Okay.
Hi, my name is Mike Hamera. I'm with VSI. I'm a PT assistant. I'm also a PT student at Newman University. I'm going to talk to you today about running mechanics in reference to, more specifically, the core. Title of my talk is Core First Wins the Race. So the idea is, when you look at running, running is perhaps one of the most popular forms of exercise that we see in the United States. On average, about 51% of Americans exercise, and running is just the grossest, largest population of exercisers. However, what we do see is we do see a pretty large trend of injuries with that exercise. For instance, what we'll see is anywhere between 37 and 56% of runners will have some form of an injury. So that's like 2.5 to 12.1 injuries per 100 hours of running. That's a lot of injuries. Most injuries occur at the lower body, particularly the knee. 42% of the knees of runners have knee issues. So about 17% are foot and ankle, 13% are lower leg, and then the last 11% are the hip and the pelvis. So a lot of times what we'll see with those injuries is that they'll be reoccurring. So 70% of them will reoccur. So you'll have an injury, you'll think you get it better, and then it will reoccur if you're in that 70% of the population. 60% it'll cause them to just stop running altogether, which is really unfortunate. And then 50% will eventually lead them to seek some kind of medical assistance for it, which is what physical therapy is all about. So one of the main concepts in physical therapy is the idea of proximal stability with distal mobility. So the idea there is that it's all about the core. Can you stabilize your core so you can use your extremities? It doesn't matter if it's a hand or an elbow or shoulder or a knee or a foot or an ankle problem. We're going to deal with your core stability as we deal with the other issues. And it's just so important that we deal with that. One of the techniques we use in physical therapy is PNF, it's peripheral neuromuscular facilitation. And the idea there is that you're learning how to take a stable core and really grow it into a strong extremity that can move. A lot of times with these movement patterns that PNF uses, we'll see them in gait, we'll see them in most functional movements. Those movement patterns are these little diagonal movements that we see both in the legs and the feet. And it's a combination of those movement patterns that actually create gait, whether you're running or you're walking. So the concept of the core, what is the core? Well, it's made up of around 29 different muscles throughout the trunk. A lot of times people forget about the diaphragm, we forget about the pelvic floor, but there are major components of your core. The rest is the pelvic girdle, and then some will also include the pelvis itself and the hip musculature as part of the core. So the function of the core is to not only absorb impact and forces of impact, but also to improve a person's efficiency as they run or walk. So the more stable you have of a base for the muscles to work from in your extremities, the stronger those extremities are going to be and the more efficient they can work. Legs are super important. We need strong legs, we need strong extremities. But the fact is that you don't need strong extremities to run. With amputated patients, a lot of them can run. They don't have legs, yet they run. And it's because they have a strong, stable core. So being able to really focus on core as a runner is a great way to work on injury prevention, or if you have an injury, to start there first as you work on trying to fix the other problems. PNF, like I said, is one of the techniques that we use in physical therapy. The idea there is to really help you develop not only the fact that there might be a movement dysfunction and to identify it, but also then learn how to kind of strengthen the muscles around it, what we call neuromuscular training, and then go into kind of motor control, which is really one of my favorite areas, because when you're working on motor control, you're going from, I have no idea how to do that, to that makes sense to my body, I know what to do with it. In reference to that, one of the biggest challenges is how smart the body is. It's way smarter than we are. Tendency is that we'll compensate much faster than you won't even know that you're compensating. A good example of that is where people have foot problems or back problems or postural issues. When they come into the clinic, we're trying to work on educating them about what they're doing, and half the time they don't even know they're doing it. So we spend a lot of time just breaking down the basics. We start with the idea of posture and what is posture, understanding that our neck, our thoracic spine, our lumbar spine, and our pelvis all have curves. You have in your neck and your low back, you have a lordotic curve, which curves this way if you're facing in that direction. And then in your thoracic spine and your sacrum, you have a kyphosis, which curves this way, again, if you're facing in that direction. The purpose of those curves are to absorb shock. They also promote some degree of mobility, but we still want to have a lot of stability. And what's going to hold the spine nice and stable is going to be that core stability. So the next thing that we see with common injuries with running, and probably the most common injury, is just that it's the overuse syndrome. Now, overuse syndrome will come from many different means, whether it's changing your training regimen too quickly. The common research right now is that you will increase the distance by no more than about 10%. A lot of times in the past it was thought to be around 30%. We just saw an increase of overuse syndromes, whether it's tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis, that kind of stuff. And so by making sure that we didn't increase more than 10%, you really kept yourself in a more safer environment to make progress without having injuries. The foot, in reference to the foot, we'll work our way up in reference to the extremities. The foot is a great platform, and shoes are really important. But again, it's a platform. It's what your body uses to stand on. And some believe that the foot is kind of the core of running. Unfortunately, it's only on the ground for fractions of seconds. So it really only impacts brief moments, whereas your core is impacting the entire phase, both the swing and the stance phase of whether you're walking or running. So you can kind of see again how we really need to be focused on the core, and then the footwear is just an accessory to good mechanics. In reference to the foot, some people believe that different parts of the initial contact, that's the part where your foot actually touches the ground, are better than others. And some of the research will point that an efficient mechanics uses a toe down gait or forefoot contact first. Whereas what we see is that you have, if you're wearing good footwear, the shoe's going to promote you into a heel strike. And so, well, what's better? I think what it comes down to, bigger picture, is that it's what works for you and what you've been doing your entire life. Most patients that come in here are older and been running for a good portion of their life. And so instead of trying to change what they have, we need to kind of work on correcting what they've been using. Because unless they've had pain with running their entire life, obviously they're doing something right. We just need to fix the problems. Then we look at the arms. And the arms are a really good window to what's going on dysfunctionally, whether it's in the core or down the leg. Typically what you'll see is when you see people with a weak core, you're going to see the pelvis sliding from side to side. What you'll see is those elbows kicking out in opposite directions to balance the body. Otherwise, you're going to end up running literally from side to side. You may see this in novice runners. There's a research, let's see if I can remember that guy's name, Schmitz et al., who he studied the difference between novice runners and seasoned runners. And what he found was that their leg strength, generally speaking, was about the same. Where they lacked significant difference was their core was weaker and they had poor motor control. So we come back to the core. You know, we're going to see these reflections in the arms, but it's going to come from the core. So what do we do as physical therapists? We're the movement specialists. We work on exercising and training people how to move right. Going back to that PNF, the idea of the treatment module, the model that they like to use, and it really works, is that mechanical, neuromuscular, and motor control kind of philosophy. The idea there is that we want to study how you move. What are you doing wrong? How is it wrong? And how can we fix it? And then once we kind of figure that out, we look at why can't you do it? So maybe it's a function of you don't have the strength, or you don't have the range of motion or flexibility. And so we can work on all of those structures to make sure that they're correct. And then the last part, like I said, is my favorite part. It's the motor control. It's really teaching people how to do what you do. Because you can be the strongest person in the world, but if you don't know how to move right, it really doesn't matter. So the bigger picture is, you know, in physical therapy, this is what we do. We focus on how you move. We can teach you how to run. We can teach you how to walk, but more importantly is we can teach you how to do it with less and less injuries. So thank you very much, and have a nice day.